Good morning, everyone. I'll take the lead because Mark's on Instagram. Jereme, Kleven here.
Always Instagram.
Instagram.
That's awesome.
Trying to catch Dan Blazarian or what? Is that what you're trying to do? Yeah.
Joined by the Magic Man on Instagram and the Beast Behind the Glass, Mr. Byron Filson. Back in the studio, Mr. Brian North.
What's up?
North and Co.
Back in the easy.
Back in the studio. I think we were wanting to kind of continue what we were discussing yesterday.
Yeah, where were we yesterday?
Yeah, this
We were
discussion
on
of candor and being honest and leading our clients down the process and being the true professional. Again, it's not to be the pushy salesperson. It's not to deceive people or do anything dishonest, obviously. It's just that, hey, we're the professional. This is what we see. This is my opinion, right? And you always see it too. As a quick example is like when you go out and you show 10 homes and they say, oh, this is the home for me. Okay, do you want to go back to the office and write an offer? Let me sleep on it.
Didn't think we were going to find one so fast.
Right. Didn't we think we were going to find one so, right, exactly. Yeah. So, just leading them down, you hate to see people lose out on properties. I've seen it before. Anyways, we don't need to go into that whole explanation, but it's just another example in the marketplace where you let people know through your knowledge, through your expertise of what you've seen, and you don't want that to happen to them, and kind of lead them down that path. Right?
100%.
Well, and Brian had mentioned too, with your experience with your agent, with the listing presentation, how it worked. The third one worked out for him.
Yep.
So, I'll make mine a long story short. So, taking out Andrew Glenn, one of our agents, and he asked me to accompany him on a listing presentation. So, I went out there, knowing what the property pretty much was. She kind of gave me the idea. It's not redone, this and that. Anyhow, I get there, it's kind of a disaster. Carpet stinks. It's probably original from 1981. Flooring's garbage, paint's crap, holes in the wall. I mean, everything you could see, it's like, okay, great bones, Gainey Ranch, 3,500 square feet, fixed up and sold. We already had it. You could see it for $850. They're selling for all day long, right? And this she wants $600, and I'm going, you're $500, right? Yep. So, but I was the only agent that would come in there and told her that her carpet was crap. She needed paint. It smells stale in here. Your tenants ruined the place. Need some landscaping. The whole cool deck needs to be redone.
In a nice way, of course.
Yes. I didn't say that crap, but I did explain it to her in a very, very straightforward manner. And in the end, she's hugging me. She's loving me. She brought this guy with her that was like a security guard, and he's getting my business card, like, you're awesome, thank you, this and that. And we walk out and Andrew looks at me, shoulders kind of down and looking at me in awe, like, wow, I just don't know how I could have said that. With all due respect, Andrew, you're an awesome, he's one of the greatest agents we have. He's fantastic, does a great job. But the point is, it goes to your point of candor, of just being straight up, forthright, and honest with the seller. And regardless, like you said, you're either going to lie and lose or tell the truth and lose. And what's the difference?
So if anyone wants Mark Hutchins to go on a listing appointment with them, or Brian North to go on with them with you, just
I'm happy to tell them.
By the way, for half the commission, I'd be happy to.
I take 60%, so you're more gracious to me. But I'll tell them their house is crap. No problem.
I do think
you know what I'm saying.
It's that. Look, at the end of the day, semantically, I don't like the way I'm about to say this, but people want to be led. I don't, it's not such a like sheep shepherd thing that I'm trying to say, as much as you are being hired as the professional. Once you build the rapport and you get over the salesperson, consumer, customer relationship, and you get to, I trust you, at that point, they want you to guide them to the promised land, right?
Yeah,
They want you. So it wasn't the magic wasn't candor alone. It wasn't that you walked in, she opened the door and went, man, your place looks like crap, right? I mean, like I know that's not how it went. How it went is she opened the door and you guys became sweethearts and you had fun. You checked out the house. You talked about life stories, location, laugh. And all of a sudden that person really, there's a common ground there. We're like, man, they feel comfortable with you. They feel good. You are genuine. You're being genuine. They can feel the genuine nature of the relationship. And when you transition that to, so what do you think I should do to my house?
Exactly.
You have an option at that point to fib, right? And go like, it's mostly in good shape, I mean,
couple things, the cat smell's got to go.
That's it. Or you go, you know what? Let's do this. Let's go back to the front door and walk through. Let's grab a scratch pad and let's talk about the things that we could address and what your threshold is for expense and those kinds of things, and work toward what we do to get your house. And all of a sudden now it's like, I'll do it all. Right. You go, oh my gosh, you're a superhero. And you may not have been a superhero. It's just that she liked you and she trusted you. And then you were able to be, up front.
And you made a good point. She asked a straightforward question and I gave her a straightforward answer. And there was no fluff. There was no BS. And it was to the point right away. You got it. When she said, Mark, Should I scrape the ceilings of the popcorn? Yes.
That's it.
You absolutely should.
You got it.
You know, it's like, well, you know, it could cost. No, yes, you should.
That's right.
You know, do I need to paint? Yes, you should. So it's just the direct answers. And before you know it, she's like, they're laughing, right?
Sure.
And then she owns it free and clear, you know, so I knew the situation. But, you know, here she thought it's worth $6 when really it's $5. And now I'm like, now let's go back to what we were off air you were talking about when you said going to listing presentation. You said 5,000 square foot home on an acre lot, nothing done.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that, but I do want to end. I got a punchline for you on that, which is you said yes or no. A mentor of mine once said, and this is one to put in all of our tool belts, he said, the definition of maturity is the ability to say yes or no in one word. Right?
That's pretty
There you go,
takes you
which
a
is
second
good
to think about
because
it.
you're
Yeah,
like, you know,
that's-
like,
wow.
man, you know what I mean? Like, yes.
Yeah.
No, like it's hard. We all
As
want.
opposed
We
to-
all
right.
want to fluff. Like,
Sugarcoat,
hey,
right.
so should I scrape the popcorn off my ceilings?
Well,
you got it. That's exactly right. Tell it like it is. That's called. It's called confidence, maturity. Yes, you should. You know, yes.
And
right?
they appreciate it. They're honestly asking because they want a real answer.
And by the way,
they're not asking for a fib.
Generally,
you know?
the word no is much harder, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
so it's that's the other one. Say no.
It's like from old school. Do you want the truth or do you want,
Exactly.
want the truth?
That's it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a way to remember that thing. You'll find yourself, there's listeners out there right now that are going to find themselves going, man, I was listening to that dose that day, and I remember this is where I say yes or no, yes, and watch what happens. So, you know, sign of maturity, yes or no in one word. So,
Is your commission 6%? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's
Will you cut it?
No, I'm sorry.
No.
Not yes, it is.
yes. There you go. And then the old silent stare.
Yeah.
You know, he or she who speaks first loses.
Will you
Yes,
sell
I
it in
did.
will you sell it in 30 days for the highest price?
Yeah. No.
In front of the mic.
That's it. Kidding.
Put that analogy you said as opposed to bringing. You brought comps that have been remodeled, right? Because you talked about all the lived-in remodel.
Yeah,
right?
we were BSing a little bit before we fired up here today, and we were talking about listing presentations and you know the bound, you know, hardback listing presentation, or you know the folder with the materials in it, that kind of thing. What do you bring to a listing presentation? And certainly, you know, it's fun. I was with an agent of ours this morning, headed into a listing a presentation with a developer, and her level of preparation was second to none. I mean, she'd been prepping for a week. She had clammy palms. She was nervous. It was a really big opportunity for her. And so what I'd say is, I said to her, she goes, well, you seem kind of nonchalant about this whole thing. You know, like, this is the biggest opportunity of my life, and you're kind of not, in my eyes, prepped. She kind of and I'm like, look, I am going to rely on the fact that there isn't a question you can ask me that I'm not going to have a critically thought response to some degree. I don't want that to come off as a lack of preparation. What I actually want it to come off as is genuine, right? So I don't have anything packaged for you. I'm going to sit here and you're going to grill me to death, and I'm going to have a critically thought response for you. And it takes a lot of listing presentations to go through.
Correct.
What I also say is, have your listing presentation, but leave it in your briefcase, right? Or leave it in your purse or your bag or whatever it is until you need it. Right? If you walk in with it under your arm, and you set your briefcase down, you're just waiting to like slide it across the table and go through it. It's all canned and it's all pitched and it's all kind of prepackaged.
They all know and probably have seen one.
You got it. And
you got to be there with it.
If we want to dig into the tactical stuff of then how do you do it, I've got a good little nug I can give everyone. But I want to go like a polar opposite of listing presentation, which is, I think if you're out showing homes to buyers right now, I think most would agree that out of every 10 homes, how many are well done remodels or lived in remodels or new construction? I would say probably, depending on the submarket you operate in, a maximum of 3 out of 10, right? There is just a ton of tired, slightly dated inventory out there in the marketplace right now. So I'm going to share with you an example of how you can speak to someone about value of home without even talking about comps. It just requires some critical thought and
I love that. You almost have to say it twice.
Yeah.
Talking about value without even using comps.
Yes.
Love it.
All right. So if you have what we just refer to as a tired remodel, there is a comp that you're going to use, which is simply to start with, what is the end value of your home once done right? So if it's all remodeled and all pretty and meets what 10 of the buyers in the marketplace or 9 out of the 10 want in the marketplace, how much will it cost us to get there? Because right now, every single person that comes in your house is going to have to do some work. They might like the color palette, but it might need new paint or new flooring. They might not like the color palette and they got to change everything. They might, so it just depends on but let's take and say that we're going to turn, in Central Phoenix, the gray white palette is what, most buyers want.
The mint walls.
You got the whole deal, right? So if you have the multiple beige palette going on, most people are going to want to transition that to a more, gray, white, Carrara marble, white quartz kind of combo, right? That
it looks
kind of
good. I love it. It's in.
Yeah, sure. But for this sub-market, it happens to be what the majority want. So in that conversation, you go and you say, hey, in order to get this at the top of market, and it looked like what 9 out of 10 buyers would want, it's going to be, when done, a $2 million house. Here's the comps to support it. It's your square footage, lot size, submarket, the whole nine. It just is going to need some TLC to get to that position. So what if we said we were going to bring a contractor through and we were going to get it in remodeled condition? What do we all think it would take to get it there? Sure, we're going to range. The good news is when you ask this question to a seller, most think it's going to be more expensive than it actually is, right? So they go, it's going to take $1 million, right? And it doesn't take $1 million. You go, no, there's some rules of thumb that we go off of, $50 to $70 a square foot to remodel and $150 to $200 a square foot to build and some of these conversations. But we'd say, on a house like this, in this real life example, end value, $2 million. We think it's going to take about $300,000 to get that house there. And so let me ask this question. Would you pay $1.7 million to then put $300,000 into it to be able to sell it for $2 million? So in effect, you're paying retail to bear the expense and heartache of a remodel to sell it retail. Would you do that?
Of course not.
Yeah,
of course not.
Money.
So then the next question is, what would you do? What price would you have to strike at? And you're talking to the seller, not any prospective buyer. Let me just ask you, we're totally off record. What price would you have to strike at to do that $300,000 remodel to have a $2 million house? What is the heartache of the remodel worth? Would you buy it for 1.5 so you would have $200,000 of insulation when you're done?
Still thin on that much money, if you ask me.
right?
Jeremy.
So,
but,
on that much money,
I think
at least.
about it.
Yeah,
No, that's
right,
true. It's
right.
a big investment. But, the other
part
it's
is
the conversation piece, right?
I think the real part of this conversation is, are we talking to an investor or are we talking to someone who's going to live there?
Right.
I think if someone's going to live there, I'm going to ask you guys if you agree.
They'd
I think
be
that's
okay
probably
with it.
the
Yeah.
money, right?
Sure.
So you buy at 1.5, you do a $300,000 remodel. And by the way, we've got to leave a little room for fudge room. So we might be a $350 remodel. So we end up with $200,000, $150,000, $200,000 in remodel. So now I'm looking at my seller.
equity, yeah.
I've not shown them any comps on their house. I've not said, hey, in its current condition, if we're going to market it, there's one up the street that looks just like it. All I did was just have a nice, open, candid conversation about, do you really think someone's going to pay $1.7 million to put $300,000 into it to end at that? Now, an objection that comes back is, well, what if the one person that doesn't want a white and gray house will buy my house? Well, what you just asked me to do is still sell your house at full retail, 1.7, and find the 1 out of 10 buyer who doesn't want the gray and white palette to sell your house to and get them to pay retail. So again, I'm back to that conversation of, you're not giving me any advantage to be able to sell your house to the mass marketplace, right? So we've just agreed in principle that a 1.5 purchase for a $300,000 remodel to sell for $2 million at the end feels right. Now, what do you want to price your house at? Right. Now, most likely the answer is going to be 1.75 million. We know that we know the business. But at the end of the day, I think when you can have very healthy, candid, uncanned, non-pitched, non-scripted conversations that just merit good critical thought, at the end of the day, it forces everybody to think. And then what happens is when you go to market and it doesn't work, you get to come back and go, remember that conversation we had? And we all agreed, that 1.5 was the money. I've got a $1.475 million offer on the table, and we should probably take a hard look at it, right? So it's just, there's an example of, some real-time communication that we have regarding price without comps.
And you were I love that. And you were talking before about kind of the striking up that conversation, kind of the volley back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you brought up an objection, the crazy objection. Anytime we get a crazy objection, we talk about an old, there's some sales trainers listening, and there's some sales students in class that are listening. listening, but we talk about the volley, a crazy question of, well, I heard what you said, Brian, but what do you think about still listing it for 1.8? And the question is, well, explain to me why you think that's a good idea. So they asked me a question and then I asked them a question back. So why does 1.8 seem like it makes sense after we just all decided 1.5 does? Right. Well, so I didn't say anything to offend them. There was nothing offensive about that question. Just because they said something somewhat ridiculous to me doesn't mean I'm not allowed to ask a somewhat ridiculous question back to the ridiculous response. Right. So it's one of those things where now they get to explain themselves into a whole, right? We know what they're going to say. Nothing they're going to say is logical because we just had the logical conversation, right? So from here on out, it just spins them into a place of having to get to a place of reality. And you go, so Brian, I guess 1.5 is where we should list. And Mark, the answer is?
Yes.
There it is. Yeah.
It spins them into a place of actually of self-discovery.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
People like you were talking about before, people don't want to get sold in the push or all those kinds of things, but if they are the ones that figured it out, or if you help lead them to get there or help get there, but they're the ones that discovered that, right? Oh, I think you're right. We will, or I'm right. I should,
100%. And it's such a bummer is like, even hearing you say it, right? If I'm a listener, I'm like, oh yeah, he tricked them into it being their idea. And the fact is you didn't trick them into being an idea. It was just a good, healthy conversation that got two people going like, you know what? That just makes sense.
Well, it's real. It's not like there's nothing, you're not fibbing. It's real numbers. Yep. It's a real conversation. Yep. And it's not leading them down that path of, like everybody else. Oh, it's worth all that dough. It's worth all that dough to get the listing, right?
Remember that's it. You remember the example that we talked about yesterday, Zach Hawker, who's at the brokerage. He came to me, and when we had the phone conversation about being candid with his client, he said to me, it's so amazing. I was looking for the magic pill. Like I was looking for the slick trick to get them to do. I was waiting for, and it wasn't. It was just tell them, no, this is how it goes, right? That was it. And then he did it and it worked.
And it worked.
There's no trickery, right?
There's no trickery.
Yeah, you don't have to be slick about anything. Just be black and white, be real about it, and you'll get a different result.
I love it. All right, well, let's stop there today, guys. Boot camp, or A to Z is what it's called. That's A to Z, 10 o'clock. Come one, come all. We'll see you there. Byron, are you going to be there?
I don't know.
I'll take that as a no.
I'll be there in spirit, bro.
Yeah. All right, guys, have a great day. Tune in tomorrow for some more. See ya.
Thanks. Ciao.